the back? Can you hear me at the back? Bit worried the speakers weren't loud enough. Welcome to our 8th regional conference here in September. Unlike all the other political parties that have one expensive national conference, we're going all around the country. So this is our 8th of 10 conferences through September. And my word, what a crucial time this is in politics today. Literally none of us have any idea what's going to happen. But we, the Brexit Party, are going to have an impact. We're going to change politics for good. Now, it's hard to believe we're only 23 weeks old. We've been quite busy, I hope you'll agree. It's fair to say that in that 23-week period, we really have had a significant impact. And just 3 weeks ago, we started the beginning of this We Are Ready tour, when we announced over 500 approved prospective parliamentary candidates ready to stand in seats all over the country for the next general election. Who knows when it'll be? So, and here in the Southwest, we've got numerous candidates who are also here today. So if they could just stand up, give everyone a wave. Because let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, Nigel and I are truly humbled at the quality of people who put themselves forward to be candidates. We had some 3,000 applications to be candidates. Everyone was looked at by 2 people. We interviewed over 1,400 people and selected over 600. And these candidates, in my view, are the highest quality candidates that have ever stood for public office in this country, including these men and women. And the thing is that they are real people who've achieved, done things, been around the block a few times. They're not pretty perfect policy wonks from Westminster. We've had enough of them. We want them out. And that's why we're so proud of the quality of these candidates. It's hard to believe when we launched 23 weeks ago, we announced our first 6 MEP candidates, including Jacob's sister. That caused a bit of a family row. 6 weeks after we launched, we'd won a national election. We got 50% more votes than any other party. And the bit I really like is that we got more votes than the Labour Party and the Conservative Party put together. And the other exciting statistic is, believe it or not, we're now the biggest single political party in the European Parliament. Which is, and you may have heard, not only have we shown up in Strasbourg, but I think you may have heard that we made a bit of a noise. Because, of course, we've been hired to do a job we want to be fired from as quickly as possible, which is quite unusual. But none of us know whether or not we're going to leave on the 31st of October or not. Our real concern is that actually we're not, because of all the nonsense and the parliamentary games that's going on. And Nigel will talk about those a bit later. But our simple slogan of changing politics for good resulted after that European election, thankfully, in the removal of the worst Prime Minister this country has ever had the misfortune to have. So that was a good start. And with her gone, we also got rid of the least talented, worst cabinet this country has ever been governed by. But as we know, there is a great deal to do, and the world has moved on since then. At the end of June, we held the biggest political rally this country's seen for over 25 years. We had 5,000 people in Birmingham. We announced some of our first policies, some really key things that actually will create the funding to invest in the regions. We said we would scrap the ridiculous HS2. And I think we're a bit ahead of the game, because we said at the time that'll save 100 billion quid. The government said, no, it's about 55, 60. Don't worry, they said. Sure enough, a couple of months later, the government admitted the truth. They're carrying out a review because they know that the costs are going up to 100 million, and actually they're now copying us because they're having that review with a view to scrapping it. So that's fine. We then said we'd use that money to invest in the regions that have been left behind, that haven't had the investment that London's had. And sure enough, during Boris's leadership election, he started to copy us again. He said he wanted to invest in the regions. We said at our rally in Birmingham, we said that we wanted to invest not only in physical infrastructure, but in broadband and free Wi-Fi on all public transport. And sure enough, Boris has now been talking about exactly the same things. They say that imitation is a form of flattery. Well, we're very happy that a Conservative Party bereft of new ideas is copying some of our smarter domestic policies. Indeed, they've even started to copy the style of our rallies and the style of our videos. They've run out of ideas. And that brings me on to Boris himself. Well, dear Boris, let's be honest, he is a bit more fun than his previous incumbents, isn't he? I mean, whatever you think of him, there's a bit more to talk about. But do we trust him, ladies and gentlemen? Do we trust him? That is the central issue. Because he is out there trying to renegotiate, rehash, and reheat the worst deal in history, Theresa May's terrible withdrawal agreement. And we'll be talking more about that later. But we're going to stop him. And one of the ways we stop him is by making sure that he understands that we're ready to stand in every seat in the land if he doesn't do the right thing, if he doesn't go for a clean break Brexit. And that's why you've seen some of these candidates, but we've just got a short video here as well, just talking about some of the experiences of some of the other candidates across the country. So let's just watch that on the screen.
In just a few months, the Brexit Party has some amazing achievements. We've reset the political agenda, got rid of a hopeless Prime Minister, and made the option of a clean break Brexit the most popular one in the country. But now we face our biggest challenge, to fight a general election across the entire United Kingdom. And we are ready.
54% of people of Leicester East feel like they don't have a voice. So I'm here to give them that voice. There's a lot of people that I've spoken to that said they're never going to vote again, because how can you trust the political system now? People just want common sense, people like them representing them, and that's where the Brexit Party is firmly positioning itself. It's just a party of regular people like myself who want to get involved because we care, and then make sure that this sort of betrayal can never happen again.
People voted for something completely new, voted to go out into the unknown and try something completely different and reclaim power back. We all have a stake in it, and I'm one of those people.
Even though I'm an ordinary person on Exmoor, running the Exmoor Pony Project, living an ordinary life, I just felt that I had to be part of it. We've stepped up because we simply have to defend and safeguard our democracy, and we're here.
From what I've seen, a lot of the Brexit PPCs now are just from normal backgrounds, and just working class people who care about people as well.
I think there's a lot of commonality between a politician and a doctor. Consultation always begins with listening. You listen to what the person has to say, take on board, and then help them and make them realise that actually they've got control. They've got the power to decide their future and what to do and what not to do, and they're not helpless.
I'm just a normal, hard-working, working class person. But I think the taxi driving has given me an insight of how people live, and you get to learn their issues because you become their agony aunt. To tell the taxi driver everything.
I am ready.
I'm ready.
I am ready.
I'm definitely ready.
I'm ready.
We have an extraordinary cross-section of people from every walk of life making a stand for democracy. They will be our candidates at the forthcoming general election, and we are ready.
Just some of the candidates elsewhere in the country. And it takes real courage to put your head above the parapet if you've never previously stood for public office, particularly standing up for the Brexit Party, standing for democracy. It's extraordinary, the response that some of these candidates have had. Some of them have literally lost their job, lost contracts, lost employment, just because they said, I want to stand for the Brexit Party. The abuse, the vilification online is hideous. But we know this battle is worth fighting for, and we have to keep fighting until we win. And we don't know when the general election is coming. For all we know, there could even be, heaven forbid, a referendum before the general election. Anything literally could happen. So we have to be ready for anything, and that's why we need all of your help supporting these candidates, canvassing, manning street stalls, putting out leaflets, whatever, because we have to make sure we win this battle. And we've got some great speakers, the first of whom is probably one of our most experienced candidates and indeed politicians. She's a member of the European Parliament for the Brexit Party here in the South East, which is the most important phase of her career. But it's the third phase of her career. She had a couple of warm-up phases. She started with some other party. She was an MP for them for many years. Then she saw the lights and realized that her real calling was to teach us all how to dance. That was her second phase. But the most important phase is actually helping the country stand up for democracy. And so before we welcome Anne to the stage, and she's standing here in the Southwest in Plymouth as a prospective candidate, and will do incredibly well, we know. But before we welcome Anne to the stage, let's just see her in action. And my word, she's always in action, as you'll hear in a minute. Let's just see her in action on the video.
In a complete mess. We've got the worst Prime Minister since Anthony Eden. We've got the worst leader of the opposition in the entire history of the Labour Party. And we've got the worst Parliament since Oliver Cromwell. And with that combination, we are actually engaged in the most important international negotiations for 50 years. No, let me finish this sentence, Adam, then over to you. There's a growing disengagement between the people and Parliament. So what I want is an overwhelming Brexit victory on May the 23rd. That's what I want.
Please welcome to the stage, Anne Widdecombe.
Thank you. Oh, what a mess it all is. We've got a Parliament that is determined not to do the will of a people. We've got a Parliament that is determined not to help the government to do the will of the people. And we've got a government which is against the Speaker of the House of Commons. Everywhere you look, it is a conflict, it is a nonsense, and it is an abject failure to act upon the biggest popular vote in our nation's history. But we can change all that, and we stand ready to change all that if Boris Johnson does not deliver on that very clear promise that we will leave the EU on the 31st of October, do or die. And if he doesn't deliver on that promise, then we will make sure that we do deliver on that promise. Oh, there's a great deal of talk at the moment. He's doing some deal, apparently. Well, let's be very clear about this. If what he comes back with is simply Theresa May's so-called deal with a tweak to the backstop, or even without the backstop, that is still not Brexit. The withdrawal agreement would mean moving from full imprisonment to house arrest. And the British people did not vote in 2016 for house arrest or for any other confinement within the bounds of the EU. We voted unequivocally to leave. And we're now being told, but nobody voted to leave without a deal. We voted to leave. Of course we want a trade deal with Europe. Of course we want to maintain a close relationship with Europe after we leave. Of course we still want to be a part of Europe, but we do not want to be part of the European Union. And we do not need a deal just to leave them. We were given a very straight choice in that referendum. We could stay in, or we could come out. And when we said come out, what we thought that meant was that we were going to, from that moment onwards, or from the moment when it was implemented, we were going to be able to make our own laws, to repeal our own laws, if that was what we wanted to do, to control our own borders, to set the terms for those borders, and to make our own trade deals, and to be governed by a democratically elected government voted for by the British people. That's what we thought we were voting for. Well, that isn't what the withdrawal agreement says. The withdrawal agreement is the result of the EU knowing that they had us where they wanted us, because our Prime Minister, our then Prime Minister, spent all her time on her knees in Brussels, tugging her forelock to the likes of Juncker and Barnier, instead of telling them where to go. Well, Well, Boris Johnson has got a choice. Boris Johnson can either make sure that Britain leaves, or he can endure the result of not doing that, which is that we will make sure that the MPs leave and are replaced with people who speak for us. And we've given Boris that choice. If he leaves, by which we mean leave properly, not with some souped-up Theresa May deal, if he leaves in a clean break on the 31st of October, as he has promised, then we will do our level best to ensure that he is able to carry that out. But if he leaves on a basis that is not leave at all in anything but name, or if worse than that, he fails to leave altogether, and if he despises our help, then quite honestly he can go ahead in the charge of the Light Brigade. And he will have Brexit to left of him, Brexit to right of him, Brexit in front of him, volleying and thundering. And it will be as hopeless an effort on his part as was that very famous military exercise. So, Boris, you'd better leave. And the reason you'd better leave is not because the Brexit Party tells you to, but because that was what the people told Parliament they wanted 3 years ago. And what on earth have they been doing in those 3 years, except creating the biggest constitutional mess that we've had since the Civil War? You've got a government which is hopelessly split on the subject and is irresolute. You've got an opposition whose only interest is not declaring for one side or the other in case it upsets anybody, but nevertheless is determined that its first duty is to bring down the government rather than to implement the will of the British people. The one thing you can say for the Lib Dems is they do know what they stand for. They stand for just ignoring the result of the referendum and taking us back into Europe. That's what they want to do. But there is one party that is determined that the will of the British people will be implemented. There is one party that is utterly united in its aim to bring that about. There is one party that stands ready in the event of failure on the part of the government to bring that about. One party, and that is our party, the Brexit Party. We speak with one voice, not with half a dozen voices, as do the Tories, or at least a dozen voices, as do the Labour Party, or with one deep anti-democratic tyrannical voice, as does the Liberal Democrats. No, we speak with one democratic voice. And we need to make sure that that voice is heard loud and clear in Westminster, in Europe, and throughout the country. We are going to leave. We're going to leave on October the 31st. And if we don't do that, because of some pathetic failure on the part of the people that we have actually put in Westminster to do our will, then we will sweep them out. We will take their places and we will leave.
Let me tell you, I think we can fairly say that Anne is ready. She's ready for anything. Are you ready? And my word, what leadership, what enthusiasm, what energy Anne provides to us all. An absolute inspiration. We're truly, truly grateful to have that with us at the Brexit Party at this crucial, crucial time. And so to our next speaker, who's one of the prospective candidates down here in the southwest for Bridgwater and West Somerset. He's an author. That went well. What's wrong with Bridgwater? He's an author, a scholar, and a businessman. It's great to have him as a prospective candidate. Please give a massive welcome, Alexander Waugh.
Thank you. Why am I here? What arse would possibly want to stand up and make a speech after the Ciceronian oratory of Anne Widdecombe? When I went to the interview with the Brexit Party, they said to me, "You know that you are going to be abused by your professional peers, even by your family and your friends." Courage was mentioned just now by Richard. Courage is the highest of all the virtues, from which all other virtues proceed. And the one thing we can say about Brexiteers is they are extraordinarily courageous. And we must continue to be courageous, and we must wear our Brexit Party badges with pride. We have had enough. We have had enough of being told that we are some form of social pariah for voting for Brexit. And we look up to those courageous people, which includes every one of you, even though there may be some Remainers in the audience today. But it was extremely courageous of 17.4 million people to throw back the ludicrous, hideous, pompous and completely inaccurate rubbish of Project Fear right back in the faces of the Prime Minister, the Treasurer, the CBI, the BBC, the President of the United States of America, indeed. We threw it back in their faces in what one of our great PPCs, the masterful troubadour Dominic Frisby, called 17 million F-offs. And he was right. We have very brave. We have a brave collection of PPCs who are prepared to stand for this party. They come from an enormous range of backgrounds, of educations, of stripes, of colours, everything you could possibly wish. And I can tell you, of all the ones I have met, there isn't a single one among them who is standing for the Brexit Party in order to further some sort of greasy pole political career. That is not why they are there. These people are standing because they believe they have a duty to fight, and to fight the appalling predations to democracy that this revolting parliament of dunces and liars has put upon us. I say it, and we're told sometimes not to use strong language. Sorry I said dunces and liars, but every single person here has been upon the internet and they've looked to see what people like Heidi Allen, David Cameron, Corbyn, well, the list is so endless I don't know why I even start, Theresa May. We can find clips of all of these people promising something absolutely emphatically on one clip and then vehemently proposing something completely the opposite on another clip. They are simply not worthy of claiming to run this country by Parliament. What have I got here? Not the speech I'm not even making because I've given up my notes. I've got this. This rubbish. This came through my post a week ago from the Lib Dems. I believe they've sent it to everyone in the country. Liberal Democrats are winning. The Liberal Democrats, this is what it says, the Liberal Democrats were the clear winners in the European election this year. I mean, for heaven's sake, it's simply not true. Now we finally... We have Boris Johnson, in the repulsive vernacular that he uses, described Theresa May's withdrawal agreement as a stinker and a polished turd. And I would not speak in that language anyway. And he said that it's dead in the water. We all know perfectly well that in a matter of weeks he is going to bring this stinking turd back to Parliament and is going to call it Brexit. Well, we all know what Brexit is, don't we? It's independence from the EU. But what are the connotations of this word, I wonder, in, say, 100 or 200 years' time? I'm sure all words change. We know they change their meanings. I hope that there will come a time when our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, will reach for the dictionary, look up Brexit, verb, to bring honour, integrity and trust to democratic politics by application of courage. Thank you. That is what we stand for.
Isn't it great? I'll pop up one. Isn't it great? Thank you, Alexander. We've had two speakers so far, ladies and gentlemen. I have to say, I don't think anybody out of 650 MPs in Westminster are a patch on the sort of expertise and quality we've got. And now to our next speaker, who is an elected member of the European Parliament for the Brexit Party in Brussels and Strasbourg, and she's been an absolute star over there with all of the other 28 MEPs. She's been a nurse, a volunteer, a carer. Please give a massive welcome, Christina Jordan.
Good afternoon. Earlier this year, I asked you to help us send Parliament a strong message, a message they could not ignore. 611,742 wonderful supporters in the Southwest did just that and sent 3 of us to the EU Parliament. I am honoured to stand here today and thank them and you. Was the European Union disappointed at the arrival of the Brexit Party MEPs? You bet they were. Do they wish that every time they looked up, they didn't have 3 rows of Brexit Party MEPs and their Union Jack flags looking down at them? You're right. I have a strong feeling they do. Do they like being challenged, questioned, called out? Doubt it very much. In my early years, I trained and worked as a nurse before leaving nursing to work as cabin crew. I happily put my uniforms away when the time came to live a quiet life as stay-at-home mum and part-time charity fundraiser. If anyone had told me when I arrived here from Malaysia in 1985 that I would be part of a successful campaign to be a voice for those who want to preserve our precious democracy, to be a great big thorn in the side of unelected bureaucrats who sat every month in not 1 but 2 parliaments in 2 countries, I would have suggested very politely that they sought help. So why did I do it? For democracy, for our votes to matter, to tell elected, privileged members of Parliament that we put them on those green benches. To tell everyone that a referendum result does not get overturned. The Brexit Party is the only party defending our freedom and our rights, the only party that believes in our nation's independence. I have the honour and privilege to work with 28 MEPs who are doing their utmost not to disappoint those who voted for them. We cannot wait for the day when every single UK MEP is no longer a member of that clubhouse. I sometimes wonder about this inexplicable love and devotion that parties like the Lib Dems, SNP, etc. have for an EU project that to me resembles a Ponzi scheme. With Labour, you might just as well flip a coin or check a sundial if you want to know their position on Brexit, on whether they back a second referendum or whether, if at all, they want a general election. And seeing as Labour can't even agree on whether they want to have a deputy leader, we're not going to find out anytime soon. It is incomprehensible why UK political parties put the interests of foreign countries above their own. It is depressing that they would want a foreign body to interfere in our laws, to control our fishing and borders, and to help themselves to billions of pounds of our money. Why would any UK party want to belong to an institution that wants to be an empire and have its very own army? We sit in that chamber and listen to speakers belittle, insult and humiliate the UK because we had the cheek to say we are leaving. I walk along the EU corridors of entitlement, look at a chamber that would turn Jon Snow's white hair black, listen with dread at EU's mission creep, and I am grateful to 17.4 million voters. They knew exactly what they were doing in 2016 and why. We applaud every one of them. Our country does not need laws or lessons in democracy from a body that picks its leaders after shoddy backroom deals. We do not need the EU telling our fishermen what they can catch and how much. And we certainly do not need ardent, loyal supporters of an institution that has mainly people of colour working in the kitchens and cleaning the loos and floors of its parliamentary building, accusing us of racism or lecturing us about equal opportunities. All the United Kingdom needs is to leave the European Union with a clean break Brexit. Because if we don't, the Brexit Party will be coming after every MP's seat. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. An absolute star with us in Brussels and Strasbourg. And now to our next speaker, who is the prospective parliamentary candidate here in Exeter for the Brexit Party. And I talked about the wide range of expertise, and he's been involved in IT, he's been a volunteer, a businessman, and a trade unionist. So he's got real life experience like so many others. Please give a massive welcome, Kenneth Hockey.
Well, this is the first time that I'm going to be speaking in public to a crowd of quite this size. So I've got my paper just to make sure I don't forget anything. And I'll try not to mess up too much. First of all, hello Exeter. I'd like to say how honoured I am to be representing the Brexit Party as the PPC for Exeter, and I hope to be standing here in the near future as your Member of Parliament. I've lived in Devon for the past 59 years. I know I don't look that old, but there you go. Having moved here when I was a year old. Exeter has become a central part of my life since my daughter, who's a priest, has moved here and her parish is in Exeter, and she's been here now for 2.5 years. And her husband is at the university, which, so, you know, I've got the attachment to both. I'll explain more on that shortly. It's been an integral part of my life here in Exeter, because I mean we always used to visit here quite a lot when I was a kid, but recently, as I say, I've been coming here more, joined a local club, and you'll quite often find me hiding away in a Wetherspoon somewhere having a quiet pint. I worked for the electricity board for a fair time in their computer IT. And I've also been an active member of the Nalgo trade union, trained as a representative. So it just goes to show that the BBC's portrayal of the Brexit party as a far-right party is pretty insane. Following early retirement, I have focused my attentions on getting involved in my local community and causes that matter deeply to me. I've worked as a governor, vice chair and chairman of my local primary school for almost a dozen years, which has given me an insight into the deep problems which our country's education system faces. My wife and I have also spent time volunteering in the Plymouth Refugee Centre, which has highlighted to me the lack of leadership on a national level on the topic of refugees and the devastating human effect that has had. So those are some of the reasons why I'm concerned coming out of early retirement. Like all of you, I am sick and tired of watching this broken parliament play their silly games. These self-serving politicians, I'll use that, please don't call me a politician, who keep on breaking their promises to the electorate. Jeremy Corbyn, who changes his position almost daily and will do anything to get elected, including betray the principles he has held himself for decades. The Tory rebels, who for some reason have no faith in their country, their party or the electorate. Labour and the Tories just do not care about the matters, what matters to our region. The traffic jams at peak times getting into and out of Exeter, Plymouth and Barnstaple. Rural hospitals and post offices closing, often leading to the elderly and most disadvantaged being isolated. The rural rollout of this super-fast broadband, failing to meet its targets year in, year out. Chronic shortage of mental health provisions, leading to already stretched police forces having to pick up the pieces. These people are so used to their game playing, but they are mistaking us for their usual opponents. We do not play games. We are the farmers, the fishermen, the miners, the cooks, the soldiers and nurses, the homemakers, and every other occupation you can think of. We are the people who elected these fools into office. We're fighting for our democracy, our sovereignty and our independence. I believe in the United Kingdom and the diversity of its people who make up our great country. In a city such as Exeter, which voted 55% to remain in the European Union, people might assume that the Brexit party has no hope. They would be wrong. You only have to cast your minds back to the European elections in May, when we won the elections in Exeter, getting more votes than any other political party. The official opposition, the Labour Party, had dropped into a pathetic 4th place with only 12.5%, which just goes to show that the people of Exeter are Democrats and they will stand up for the democratic values regardless of how they voted in 2016. The people of Exeter are no longer being fooled by these politicians. We are from Devonshire and we are mobilising because we are joining the fight for democracy. If you want to see what happens when the people of the Shire get angry and rise up, just go and watch Lord of the Rings. I want to represent you because I am one of you. I am not a big businessman. I didn't go to Eton, nor am I a politician. I am just an ordinary member of the public. But I am willing to fight for you, for the people of Exeter. No matter your race, your creed or background, I want to be your MP in Parliament. We are a new party and I am new to this role. So I ask you to work with me and the Brexit Party to create a party built of the people, for the people, rather than by the establishment, for the establishment.
Thank you, Kenneth. The sort of quality of candidates that we've got across the whole country. Thank you so much indeed. Now we've touched on this terrible withdrawal agreement. And even without the backstop, it is still the worst deal ever in history. But it's so complicated, all 585 pages of it, that sometimes it's hard to just get your teeth into it, particularly after a good, long summer. Anne talked earlier about house arrest. When you arrest someone, you generally arrest them with a set of handcuffs. You might wonder where this is going. They say a picture tells 1,000 words. But actually, this is really, really important, because this deal that Boris is going to bring back to Parliament will trap us. It will lock us into the European Union forevermore, and we won't be able to get out. Is that what we want? Do we want to be trapped? No, we want freedom, don't we, ladies and gentlemen? Because the problem is, not only would we be locked into it, but we would give the key to the European Union, and they would decide when to unlock it. I was a failed actor at school, but I'm going to try again. Because the thing about when you're taken under arrest, where are you taken? You're taken to prison. There we are. And what P stands for is we would have to pay 39 billion quid of our taxpayers' cash just for the right for a chat, for nothing in return. Literally nothing in return. We wouldn't even have a guaranteed trade deal. Just paying a bunch of our money for nothing. The second thing, R. R means that we would continue to be ruled by the European Court of Justice with no voice and no say for years and years and years. The next thing is I. The truth is we would still be effectively inside the customs union and the single market. So we wouldn't be able to do trade deals with the rest of the world. We wouldn't be able to cut prices of consumer goods. And you can see what's happening here now, ladies and gentlemen, can't you? We're being hemmed in. We're being trapped by pillars that have got the European Union's flag on it. It's not what we want, is it? S. We would suffer the plunder and pillage of our fishing waters forevermore. We don't want that, no. It's getting a bit cozy here. I'm not feeling that comfortable. O stands for being ordered around. We don't want to be ordered around by someone else. We don't want to be ordered to accept EU rules and regulations with no voice. And we certainly don't want to be ordered how to conduct our military operations, how to conduct our foreign policy. But that is what this terrible deal does. It is literally treason, as you say. N, ladies and gentlemen, is quite clear. That is not Brexit. That is entrapment, locked in forevermore. Do you want to be locked in? No. I don't either. What I want to be is free. I don't want to be cuffed. Do you want to be free? Do you want to be free? We all want to be free of the terrible European Union. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that is the message that you've got to take home and tell your friends, your family, people you've never met before. That is what they're trying to do with this terrible deal. And our final speaker today has fought harder, more courageously, more bravely for that freedom for over 25 years. Through thick and thin, he's been abused, vilified. He is the original Brexiteer. And he's on great, great form. Like Anne and the other speakers, he is ready for action, as we are ready. Before we welcome Nigel to the stage, let's just see him in action on the video.
It's extraordinary to think that back in March of this year, all seem lost from a Brexit perspective. We had a Labour and Conservative Party, both of whom were happy not to take us out of the European Union. And I felt that something absolutely fundamental had broken. Trust in politics, trust in our entire political system, and that is why I founded the Brexit Party, to restore that faith. What we've done already is we have completely reset the political agenda in this country, so much so that a clean break Brexit on the 31st of October is now by far the most popular option in this country.
Please welcome to the stage, Nigel Farage.
Well, what an amazing reception. Is there any other political party or movement in this country today with the energy, optimism and belief that we've got in the Brexit Party? No, there isn't. No, there isn't. And you know, I've learned so much this year. I learned that I made a terrible mistake back in 2016. I thought my life's work was completed. I thought, having spent nearly a quarter of a century being a thorn in the side of the establishment and helping to get that referendum, I thought when we'd won it, we were there. Because from the start, from the Bloomberg speech, David Cameron said the choice will be we either vote to remain or we leave all together. And we were told, remember that government leaflet that Cameron sent through every household? How I enjoyed posting it back through the door of number 10 Downing Street. But that leaflet made it clear it'd be a catastrophe because we'd have to leave the single market and leave the customs union. And everybody, all the party leaders told us that our will would be implemented, including the late Paddy Ashdown, who said he would fight to the death to defend the will of the British people in whatever they chose in that referendum. And I genuinely thought we'd done it. And I took my foot off the pedal. And then, as that 2-year period went by, after 500 MPs had voted for Article 50, which said we would leave on March the 29th with or without a deal. And I then watched with growing, mounting anger and frustration, as did so many millions, as to begin with, they started to redefine what the word leave meant. Suddenly leaving meant that we'd still be part of the customs union. Leaving meant that we'd head towards some abysmal treaty. And I realized the mistake I'd made, and I thought, well, perhaps I owe it not just to myself, but to those 17.4 million brave souls who, despite being told by George Osborne that 500,000 jobs would go immediately, that businesses would leave the nation. We even had President Obama coming over here and telling us we'd go to the back of the queue. Despite all the doom and gloom, I thought somebody has got to do something
to stand up for the 17.4 million, and that is when I did. That is when I did. That's when I did, I think, the brightest thing I've done so far in my life, and I founded the Brexit Party, and thank goodness that I did. Thank goodness I did. We campaigned in that election on the slogan of changing politics for good, because be in no doubt, just getting Brexit delivered, which we will, oh we will, however long it takes, but we will, but that is just the start. That is just the start. This country now needs wholesale political reform. We have to make sure that never again can the majority in a democratic vote in this nation be so openly and willfully betrayed by the Westminster political class. Never again. Never again. And the extent of that betrayal is shocking. Now, as we speak, the Labour Party are by the seaside in Brighton, busy amidst attempted takeover, I think, by the sort of modern-day equivalent. They want to turn it into the Communist Party, I think. But that aside, the issue of Brexit, of course, is not about whether you're on the left or whether you're on the right. Indeed, one of the greatest advocates for Brexit, one of the greatest advocates for never being part of the European club was, of course, Tony Benn. Somebody very much on the left, and equally there are others like Powell on the right. Brexit, being a free, independent, self-governing nation, isn't about whether you are left or right. As far as I can see, it's about right or wrong. But that Labour Party, despite the fact that 5 million of their own voters voted Brexit, and despite promising in their manifesto in 2017 that they would honour the referendum result, is now a party completely run by people like Sir Keir Starmer, completely run by people like Emily Thornberry. Oh, I'm surprised you're booing her. I thought she was a modern-day political genius. Did you see her on Question Time the other week? Poor old Richard had to sit next to her for an hour. There she laid out the new master plan for Brexit with the Labour Party. So just run your eyes along this for a minute. A Labour government, having won an election, will go to Brussels and renegotiate a new deal. They will then put that deal to the British people in a referendum and campaign against it. Work that out. Work that out. Unbelievable. And Jeremy Corbyn is doing his best, of course, to sit on the fence, because he knows that the Parliamentary Labour Party is now, and by the way, Thornberry has said this today in Brighton, she said the Labour Party is now a Remain party. So he's got a Remain House of Commons. He's scared of losing 5 million Eurosceptic voters. But of course, if you stand in the middle of a busy road, in the end, you get hit with the traffic going in both directions. So be in no doubt we are after that Labour vote all over the United Kingdom. And then, of course, here in the West Country, the big challenger party that perhaps could do very well, we're told, are the Liberal Democrats. Now, it is astonishing that Jo Swinson, having herself campaigned for a referendum in a Liberal Democrat party who promised they would honour the result, have now decided to simply revoke Article 50, have now decided to simply cancel the result of the referendum. And that brings us to a point that is even more fundamental and more important than the existence of the Brexit Party, and it's this. It is democracy. You see, civilized democracy can only work and only function if you have something called losers' consent. You might not like the result of an election, but you accept the result of an election. If you don't have losers' consent, you don't have civility. And what we have seen in this country for the last 3 years are some of the most senior political figures simply refusing to accept the result. They tell us that we didn't know what we were voting for. Did you know what you were voting for? And they now think, whether it's the Blairs or the John Majors or that David Cameron, oh dear, oh dear. I think he thinks he's had a good week, God help him. But at the very highest levels in this country, we now have people who refuse to accept the result of a national election. And worse than that, they try to portray all of you as somehow being knuckle-dragging, thick, ignorant peasants. How dare they suggest that 17.4 million people, how dare they? But in doing this, they are not just attacking the result of the referendum. They are not just attacking the Brexit position. They are attacking the very nature of what a democratic nation is. They are attacking something that those that went before us thought was so fundamentally important that twice in the 20th century they were prepared to make massive sacrifices to defend so that we could live in a free democracy. Thank you. What is at stake here isn't just Brexit. What is at stake here is whether democracy is going to continue to function in our nation. What is at stake here is our standing as a nation in the world. What is at stake here is everything those that went before us fought and built and handed on to us, and I believe that we want to hand on to the next generations to come. An independent, proud, self-governing, democratic nation. Now, in the wake of that referendum, it appeared that the Conservative Party had got the message. We had a new Prime Minister then, Theresa May, a Remainer, a cabinet mostly full of Remainers, but they told us it was okay. They got the message. Remember, Brexit means Brexit. And 108 times she told us we would leave on March the 29th. And yet the truth of it, and we've seen it just in the last few weeks, I mean, if Amber Rudd wasn't prepared to countenance leaving on a clean break Brexit, why did she accept the job from David Cameron in the first place? Why did Joe Johnson resign twice from the same ministerial position in the space of 5 months for the same reason? It's because the Conservative Party have got used in their manifesto pledges in elections to telling the electorate what they think they want to hear without ever having the slightest intention of carrying out or delivering it. That is how fundamentally dishonest our politics in Britain has become, and it's why we're here. Now, I said to you at the start that I made a very bad mistake back in 2016. I trusted the establishment to keep their promises. You have my vow today I will never make that mistake again, and I will not rest until we've got Brexit fully delivered. Absolutely. But it has to be Brexit. It has to be a clean break from the European Union, because that is what we voted for. And I now do see a great danger. Now look, Boris Johnson in the job, there's no question about this, has brought energy. He's brought some optimism. He's shown some leadership. Mark you, compared with his predecessor, it wouldn't have been very difficult to tick those boxes. And of course, he's told us we're leaving on the 31st of October, do or die. And he's told us again and again he's prepared to leave with no deal. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no such thing as no deal. WTO rules, a series of arrangements with our neighbours, when, don't forget, we already have the president of the port of Calais telling us there'll be no extra delays because of Brexit. There's no such thing as no deal. But they frame it as no deal because they want to portray us getting back our independence in a negative light. We in the Brexit Party call it what it is. It's a clean break Brexit. Say it again. It's a clean break Brexit. Good. And any of you, as our supporters, who ever dare to use the phrase no deal, you wash your mouths out with soap and water immediately afterwards, all right? It's a clean break Brexit. But on my visit to Strasbourg this week, well, let's talk about the enjoyable bit first, shall we? And that's the 29 of us. They've put together in this block, I think they've got us there as sort of almost like a sort of isolation zone. No, I think they fear we're carrying a virus. And we are. It's called democracy. It could spread across the rest of Europe. Now, the good part was being there at that 4-hour endless debate that we had on Tuesday about Brexit and the future of the country. And I hope you're very pleased that every time another speaker decided to insult the United Kingdom, call for a second referendum, I'm thinking particularly of Mr. Verhofstadt. Now, it's very important in a democracy, all right? Very important in a democracy that we're able to respect the fact that people have different views, and we can like them as human beings, even though they have different views. It's just that neither of those apply to Guy Verhofstadt, believe you me. But every time the country was insulted, the Brexit Party were incandescent, howling back abuse, standing up at the top of their lungs, defending the Brexit vote. And I think that's a good thing, because I think we've just about had enough of being talked down to, humiliated and treated the way that little pipsqueak from Luxembourg did to Boris Johnson last week. So that was the good bit. The good bit was knowing that we have 29 men and women from very, very different backgrounds who are able to work together as a unified team with a common goal, and that these days in politics is a rare thing. That was the good bit. The bad bit was the language that we got from Monsieur Barnier, the language that we got from Mr. Juncker. And for the first time in all of this, I heard a more conciliatory tone. They didn't attack Boris Johnson. They didn't abuse the Brexit vote. They just expressed regret that we were leaving, but almost, I thought, an acceptance that we were leaving. And they started to talk about the one demand that Boris Johnson has made, namely that the backstop needs to be gone. The backstop needs to be fundamentally changed. And Mr. Juncker said in that debate, I have no emotional attachment to the backstop. And I thought, something is going on here. Incidentally, later on that evening, after lunch, I suspect, not that I'd be a hypocrite on these things, you understand, and I might see you in Wetherspoons later, but later on that day he said he had no erotic attachment to the backstop, which was quite something, I thought. And actually, I do quite like Juncker. He makes me laugh, even if I disagree with him. But here's the danger. I know Boris has had a miserable time. Must be very tough being betrayed in public by your own brother. Must be very difficult being stabbed in the back by some of your own party. Must be very difficult to have to contest with a speaker in the shape of John Bercow, who's attempting to rip up our constitution. Isn't he absolutely the most ghastly little man you've ever seen? Although, perhaps not quite as awful as the woman who now seems to appear on BBC television day and night as if she somehow is safeguarding the nation, despite the fact she switched parties without even considering giving her constituents a by-election, headed up a campaign in the European elections where they got a derisory vote and returned 0 MEPs, and yet somehow we're led to think that Anna Soubry has the soul of our nation in her heart. My worry is this. What Boris Johnson, I fear, is going to do is to go to that summit on the 17th or 18th of October, try to reheat, and they call it Mrs. May's deal. It's not a deal. It's a new European treaty. I didn't fight for 25 years to leave the European Union treaties to sign up to another one, Boris, and we will fight you to the end if you dare do this to us. We will. And here in the West Country, where voters are more nimble than in any other part of the country, here in the West Country, where 60% of seats have changed since 1997, here in the West Country, where there are more marginal seats by number than in any other region of the United Kingdom. I put you on notice, Boris Johnson, if you go for Mrs. May's deal with a little tweak to the backstop, the voters of the West Country won't forgive you, and you will lose a lot of seats in this region to the Liberal Democrats and others. I think right now there are many in Westminster who have become totally detached from genuine public opinion. They appear to be very smug and complacent that they've been able to pass the Benn Act. Smug, happy, delighted that twice they prevented us from having a general election. I don't think they understand what the anger and disgust of ordinary people in this country is. And I think they are fundamentally underestimating the potential power of this party. And I'm standing here today not just with the speakers that you've heard, but with these men and women who are our prospective parliamentary candidates here in the southwest of England. And our message is very simple. We will not rest until the democratic result of that referendum is put into law in this country, and we've moved on to achieving real political change. We are ready for this contest. Underestimate us if you want to. We know where we're going. Without the Brexit Party, there will be no Brexit. And I promise you, we are going to deliver Brexit. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You heard the other speakers being ready, ladies and gentlemen. We're ready, but what is absolutely clear is that Nigel is ready and we are going to win. Now, we've just got time for a few questions, and the first, mainly almost a statement actually, is from Angel in Cornwall. And it's really, really important because we've all been labelled as being too old and it's only the old and the stupid that vote. But actually, Angel says, I've been a Brexiteer for years and I'm 16 years old. And that is important. And Peter from Moncton, he's got a question. Now, I'm going to ask actually of Anne, just to give Nigel a quick breather. And how much of the 39 billion are we really obliged to pay?
None.
That reminds me of one of my favourite expressions. No waffle, widders. So there's another great observation here. Alan from East Dorset, and given the extraordinary situation we're in, Alan just says, please instruct Boris to instruct the Queen to order a general election. Who knows?
I think the truth of it is that the Queen has been dragged into politics far too much over the course of the last week, and I thought for David Cameron to use his memoirs to attempt to sell a book and to sell out discretion of conversations with Her Majesty shows you how low politics has sunk in our nation.
And Nigel touched on political reform, but Russ from Taunton has a really good question, given what's happened in recent days and weeks. What's our policy on the House of Lords?
You can't believe some of the people now being sent to the House of Lords, can you? Rewards for failure have become the norm with our honours system, which is really sad, because actually the honours system is a wonderful thing, used correctly, rewarding people who've given great service to the nation, given great service to their communities, and it's so appalling that Blair, Cameron, and now Theresa May have chosen to abuse the system by rewarding their cronies and rewarding political failure. I mean, look at that bloke, Kim Darroch, who was our ambassador in Washington. There for 3 years, did a terrible job, made no connections with the Trump administration. I can think of someone who might have done a better job of it, but anyway, that's by the by. And his reward, that would have been fun, wouldn't it? But his reward, of course, is he's put in the House of Lords. And it's all too predictable, isn't it? Time after time after time. Look, I think the House of Lords, I think we need an upper chamber. I think we need an amending chamber. I think all of that makes sense. But I think the fact that now the House of Lords has been filled with 600 people who are friends and appointees of Tony Blair and David Cameron, who nearly all of whom live in a few postcodes in central London, tells you that the House of Lords in its current form has been utterly corrupted, is no longer fit for purpose, and needs to be replaced by an elected chamber. It has to happen.
And for the final question, I'm actually going to merge two questions. Neil from Wiltshire and Tom from Worcester. Deal with the Tories, yes or no? And in your heart of heart, do you actually believe we can still get a clean break Brexit.
Look, trying to predict what's going to happen over the course of the next few weeks is a bit of a mug's game. After all, we have the Supreme Court judgment coming tomorrow. No one quite knows where that's going to go. I tell you what I really think. What I really think is the worst outcome of all the potential outcomes, the worst outcome would be Boris coming back, selling or reselling Mrs. May's treaty and getting it through the House of Commons. Because it would be Brexit in name only, it would leave us trapped for year on year, and it would give the Remainers a good argument. Because they would say we're still subject to European Union rules, directives, regulations, legal judgments. We're still paying, and we have no say whatsoever. I fear if this goes through, the campaign to rejoin will actually be given some oxygen by that. But frankly, if Boris Johnson tries this and fails, I don't think he will have any choice but to recognise where his party is, to recognise where increasingly the country is. We've had enough of this. And it isn't just Brexiteers, it's also people who voted Remain, who are true, genuine Democrats. Do you know the one thing that they're really scared of in Brussels and Strasbourg? They're scared of us becoming more competitive than them because we're outside the single market and we're outside the customs union. And if we do that, far from all the doom and gloom, if we do that, there will be a wall of global money that wants to invest in this country, and we will be economically more successful than they will be. And I think if Boris does go down this route of trying to get this through and fails, I then think he will have no choice, literally no choice, but to recognise that the ground we occupy, and by the way, come November the 1st, if I'm right, and we haven't left, you just watch what the Brexit Party's poll ratings will be, because they'll be right up back where they were before Boris took over. And I think Boris will have no choice but to go towards this. If he does, he will equally, if he wants to win the election, have no choice but to come to us and work with us. And look, political parties normally work for their own interest above everything else. We in the Brexit Party, knowing that this is the most important constitutional decision this country has faced for 350 years, if we're confronted with that situation with Boris Johnson, we will do the right thing. We will put party before country if Boris wants to be honourable and wants to be true, and together we would be unstoppable.
So let's have...
I've been on the road for 3 days. I must not be getting enough sleep. I meant put country before party. I'm sorry. I apologise. Oh. Well, that's it. Maybe I'm past it now. Well, I wonder what the reaction is so poor.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to end, but let's have everybody on your feet, just making a huge noise that we send to Westminster, that we, the Brexit Party, are ready. Are you ready? Let's have your placards in the air. Yes! Are you ready? Yes! Are you ready? Yes! Thank you very much for all your support.
We will make America great again.